Hey, a couple weeks ago, one of you guys commented on one of my Procreate drawing videos asking what brushes I used, what color palette I used, and I thought that was really sweet because typically when I would put out videos like that, they were just fun filler videos for me. So to see that one of you had an interest in how I actually did the drawings means a lot. So I thought today I would do a real-time video showing you how I do what I do. So I have my iPad here. This is the 6th generation iPad. This is a 9.7 inch. And I got it because it was the cheapest and the smallest iPad that I could get that would also work with the Apple Pencil. And I think it's really important to note that you really don't need anything super expensive or high-tech to do cool drawings. So I'm currently in the Procreate app on the iPad. It is not a free app. It is $10, I believe. So it's not horribly expensive. It's definitely worth it as far as I'm concerned, especially for everything that you can do in it. It's amazing. So I already have a picture up right now. I'm gonna do my family as Adventure Time characters to kind of match the video that the original comment was on. And to add a picture into your document, you just click on this little wrench looking icon here over to add, and then insert a photo, and then it'll pop up your screen of photos and you can choose whatever one you want to add in, and it adds it as its own layer. From there, I usually add a layer, so if there isn't one already, just hit this plus sign and it'll add one in for you. I will bring the picture down so you can just kind of barely see it, and then this layer 2 is gonna be my sketch layer. So I usually like to choose a lighter color for my sketch. So I'm gonna choose this lavender color here. And so this is the color palette that I used for that original video. And this is like my pastel palette. This was very heavily inspired by Becky Cass on Instagram. I absolutely love her artwork. I'm gonna link it down in the description so you can check it out yourself. But she does all of the cutest pastel artwork. And so like this kind of palette made sense for Adventure Time. And so that's why I created it. So this is what I'll be using today as well. So then I go over to my brush icon and I go into sketching, and I'll usually just do the 6B pencil. I will note that all of the brushes that I'm using are default to the Procreate program. I haven't bought any outside brushes or anything like that. Everything I use comes with the app. And so now it's just a matter of making sure that I'm in my sketch layer, and then I will start sketching. And the nice thing about Adventure Time is because it is a cartoon, you can kind of take a lot of liberties with it. So now that I have my basic sketch layer in place, I'm going to hide the picture layer. So I'm just going to uncheck this box and that'll make it disappear. So I'm going to move the sketch layer around on my canvas a little bit, just kind of re-establish like where it sits in the portrait. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that it is selected, and it is. So then if I click on this pointer icon, it will automatically select it. I want to keep it uniform, and then I can just use my fingers to kind of move it around. So 2 fingers will move it around the canvas, and then like pinching and opening your fingers will adjust the size. And so from there you can kind of position it in your space however feels right to you. So I think that's pretty good right there. So now I'm gonna continue to add to my sketch layer, and I think this time around, because there is so much that I want to add to it, I'm gonna start another layer, and I'm gonna go slightly darker, so, or at least a different color. So I think I'll go with the green for the sketch layer. Again, I'm gonna turn down the opacity of the first sketch layer. And the biggest thing that I want to add to this is I want to draw in my sun in my belly. And so I might exaggerate this bump just a little bit more, and I'll probably move where my hand is positioned. So I'll move it down, and then I want to kind of draw him in the Adventure Time style. So like the humans would usually wear like the cute little animal hat, so I want to draw him with a cute little animal hat. So even though he is technically head down right now, I'm going to draw him head up just so you can like see him and his features a little bit better. And I think I want to give him like a little dog hat. And every time we've seen him so far, he always has his little hands up by his face, so I want to draw him like that. And then currently I'm not really liking where he's positioned in my womb, so you can select just certain parts of your layer. If you go into this kind of ribbon looking tool, so right now I am already on freehand, you want to select freehand, and then you can draw around the part that you want to move individually. Go ahead and click the cursor tool once you've selected what you want, and then you can move that part independently in that layer. So I think that's pretty good. So there he is, my squishy little boy. And so now I'm gonna go through and sketch over my original sketch, just kind of clean up anything that's looking kind of weird, add the faces onto me and Jordan, and like kind of draw in the general pattern of like his shirt, for example, and like pants and all of that good stuff. And there is my finished sketch. So I'm gonna turn off that original sketch layer, and there it is. So now I'm going to start another layer and I'm going to do my line art. So I'm going to turn down the opacity of the final sketch layer, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm in my new layer, and I'm going to select my line color. So I'm going to do this dark purple, and for my final line art, I always go into inking and I use the studio pen. Very rarely, I will occasionally do dry ink, which just gives it more of like a rougher finish. So I guess let me show you the difference real quick. So this is the studio pen, so it's like a nice smooth line. It is pressure sensitive. And then this is the dry ink line. So as you can see, it almost looks like a crayon maybe, or like a color pencil. So it just has that kind of rough finish to it. But for the purpose of this drawing, I want something a little bit more smooth, a little bit more finished, so I'm going to use the studio pen. And then I basically just go through and draw lines over my outline. You can adjust the thickness of it. So over here, this top bar is the size of your pen, and down here is the opacity for which it's going to be drawn in. So I'm going to leave that at 100, but I think I'm going to turn down the size a little bit. And if at any point something looks weird, like, I don't hesitate to go outside of my original outline. So like with this, the hair looked a little weird in the line art when I drew it, so I just gave it a less extreme angle, and I think it looks better that way. So this is actually a nice feature that I'm going to point out. So if you draw a circle and you just hold your pen there without lifting it up, it'll turn it into a perfect circle. And then you can adjust like the size of it, and it's really nice. Oh, also the angle of it. So if you ever want like a perfect line, like that's a great way to do it, because it'll work with straight lines too. Like that. And this is the finished outline. So now the next step is to add in color. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that I didn't draw in the pattern of his shirt yet. I want to do that specifically in color so that the pattern doesn't like overtake the shot. So I think I'm going to start out with skin color first. So how I do my color layer is you want to do a new layer, and you'll notice that it automatically pops it up to the top of the list. So if you hold your pen down, it will allow you to move it up and down your list. So put this one right underneath your outline layer, and that will be your color layer. I have kind of a peachy tone. It looks a bit yellowish. So I think I might do this color, but make it a bit lighter. I don't know why it's so dark. Like, I think that's probably a better color. You can customize your color palette. So if I hold down on this orange color, it's a bit bold. You can delete swatch. I'm not going to right now, so I'll click out. But if you want to delete something from your custom made color palette, that's how you do it. To add a color, now that I have a color set, you just click an open box and it will add it in for you. So to add in my color, I keep the same pen, so I leave it on the studio pen. And here's the nice part about coloring, and it makes it so much easier in this program, is I will just draw around the outline like this. So I know his hand's gonna be that color too. So draw around that. And just kind of draw around like big open areas that I know are going to be the same color. His neck I'm gonna fill in, you'll see why later, but you just keep working your way around. And now that I have a completely closed off area, if you go up to the top right hand side, hold down on, whoops, don't hold down, that'll turn it to the previous color. I'll have to go back in and select the right one. All right, so don't hold down on it. What you wanna do is click on it and drag it over to your open area like that, and it will fill it in for you. And so I'm gonna keep going around and filling in all of the areas that are skin. And the reason why I colored in his neck is because of how tight it was, the line would have intersected itself, and when I did the fill, it wouldn't have filled it in completely. So, in case you were wondering. Next, I'm gonna work on hair. And because my outline color is a stark purple, that's essentially gonna serve as my black. So I'm not gonna do any color that's darker than that, or it's gonna make the outline look weird. So even though my husband's hair is black, I'm going to go with this lighter lavender, and that's gonna kind of serve as like my darker, like blackish color for the sake of this particular drawing. There are some cases where I will do a color the exact same color as the outline, and it's more just an artistic choice, I suppose, but there's very rare cases where I would use that because I want everything to have that bold outline. And then I'm also going to bring that color down to the shoes as well, because they're going to be like Converse style. So he does have a pair of black Converse. That's kind of what this is supposed to be. And so I'm going to color that in the same color as his hair. And sometimes with like smaller areas, it's easier to just color it in yourself as opposed to dragging. So for my hair, I'm going to have to create a new color, I think. So I'm going to select this yellow, and I'm going to bring this over to maybe an orange. Like now that I'm looking, I'm thinking that original orange that I was gonna use for skin, I think that might be the better option. So let me try that, see how that looks, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I think this color will be just fine for my hair. Next, I'm gonna finish coloring in my son. So because I wanna do part of his hat white, because the background is also white, it's going to make it hard to see as I'm coloring. So I'm going to change the background color at this point. So how you do that is you go into your layers, you select your background color. As soon as you select it, it's going to bring up your palette list, and you can choose whatever color you want to make it. So you can tell like my palette list is a bit of a mess because I've been trying to find like my own palette that works for me. I'm also just realizing I'm using the wrong palette. This is actually the correct palette here. This is the correct palette that I should be using right now. So if you guys want to take a good look at this one, this is actually the palette that I used for my original video. This is a palette that was inspired by Becky Cass. I'm so sorry. I don't know how I messed that up. So to set a palette as default, since I'm already in here, if you go over, click your 3 dots on the palette that you want. This one's already set as default. So if you go in, it'll give you the option if it isn't already to set it as default. So I'm gonna set this one as default now, but we're talking about background color. So to choose the color of your background, you just go through and find the palette that you want, and you can choose the color that you want. So for this one, I'm going to do maybe a light yellow, lighter than that. So now if I go back over to this disc view, then it'll bring me back to that original display. Make sure when you go back into your layers that you're in the correct layer, so your color layer, and then you can start coloring again. I do want to keep using that color that I originally went with that's not actually part of this palette. So if you look, that's a little bit different. So I'm going to plant that into this pastel palette and continue using it for the sake of this project. Okay, it's still a bit difficult to see that white, so I'm going to change the background color again. That'll be easier to see the white. There's my precious little child. I am going to go down and color in the white for my husband's shoes too. So So now I'm gonna color in my dress, and I think I'm actually gonna do it the same color as the background. So I'm gonna change the color of the background again, probably back to that original yellow, and then I can start coloring that blue. So as I'm sitting here manipulating the screen, in case you don't know how to do that, just using 2 fingers, you can kind of move it around, and pinching and opening your fingers will zoom it in or zoom it out. So sometimes it's easier to just kind of turn your drawing to get into certain areas. So I think his pants, I might make a tan color, even though they weren't in the original picture. So I think I might do this light brown color. And now the last thing that I need to color in is his shirt. So I'm gonna start first with the base color, which I think I'm gonna do as this lighter blue. And then we'll draw in the pattern after, and we're gonna do that a little bit differently. So I'll show you when we get there. So what I'm going to do for the pattern is I'm going to create another layer. So add layer, it automatically bobs it on top of your color layer. That's good, that's what I want. I want it below the outline layer but still above the color layer. And then I'm going to select this darker blue and start drawing in the pattern. And then I think I'm going to experiment real quick. I don't know how it's going to look, so I want to at least try it. I'm going to select that like black color that I've been using, so that dark purple. And I want to try adding that in and seeing if it like adds any extra something to it, or if it just looks weird. I think I might like it. Hold on, let me do a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm going to continue on because I think I do like how it looks. It kind of looks a little bit more like the original picture. So at this point, I'm almost done, at least for this particular project. But the last thing I want to do is add in some shadow to give it a little bit more depth. And then I'll kind of play around with the background a little bit too to make that look a little nicer. But I'll show you how I do shadows first. So once again, you're going to want to create a new layer and make sure it's underneath your outline layer. And for this, you're going to go in with your original line color. So this is another trick you can do. If you go in between your 2 sliding adjusters on the left-hand side, if you click that square box in the middle, it'll bring up your color picker, and then you can kind of drag that to the color that you want to select. So I just want to make sure, because again, this wasn't from the original palette that I was meaning to use, so I'm going to add that in real quick. So create your new layer. You want it below the outline layer but above your color layer. And I've noticed that I always tend to draw my shadow as if the light source is coming from the left hand side. So pretty much any of my drawings that you look at, that's how it is. And I should really experiment more with different lighting angles, and I may one day, but not today. So if you're acting as if your light source is coming from like this side of the canvas, then everything back here is going to be darker, right? That's where your shadow is going to be. So you just kind of start going along and coloring in like the back half of your picture, anywhere where the light's not going to hit, or like along edges where you know it's like a 3D effect, so it'll give it some depth. And once I get to a certain point, then I will turn down the opacity before I continue on. So turn it down to about 30. I think that's normally around where I set it at. And this is just to make like a really quick, easy shadow. Obviously there are more complicated ways that look nicer, but if you're just trying to do something quick, like this is like a really great quick way to just do a really fast shadow. And there is my finished drawing. So I'm going to finish up the background real quick. So I'm going to add in a layer just above my background color. I want to change my background color to, let's say, like a nice light pink. And then I'm going to do like a nice color swirl, I think. So making sure that I'm in that layer, I'm going to select maybe a purple first. Over my brushes, I'm going to go down to airbrushing, make sure I have the soft brush, check the size. So I'll probably do like a 13. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so I'm going to do just kind of random squiggles to kind of marble it. And then next color, I'll do like maybe this nice mint color. And I'll just kind of like add that in too. And it's just like a really nice basic background you can do. And then I do think I'm gonna do one last thing. Again, this is just artistic preference. But when I have a basic background like that, I like to make my drawing pop a little bit more. So I'm gonna add in another layer, just like anywhere, probably about where my original sketch layers were. And I will select the white color and then go back to inking and then studio pen. And what I'm gonna do is just go around the border and just draw a white border around my drawing. Again, you don't have to do that, but it's an artistic choice, and like I'll usually do it again if I have like a really basic background, which I usually do. I haven't really experimented much with doing like crazy wild backgrounds. It's something that I do want to do eventually, I just haven't really done it yet. And there is my finished drawing. So this was done like super quickly because I wanted to get through it fairly fast, but like that's the general idea of how I create a drawing. Of course, the last thing you always want to do is sign your name. And then to save your photo then to your iPad so you can share it to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or wherever you want to share it, or even just print it off, you go over to your wrench icon over here, over to share, and then under the share image you'll see the different file options that you have to choose from. So I usually do PNG, and it'll bring up your export window, and then you save image, which is right under copy, so save image, and that'll save it to your photo folder. There is also a really cool feature where you can split your layers, so all of the layers that you have, I think it only does the visible layers, so if you want all of the layers to save, you have to make sure that they're all checked visible, but you can save each individual layer and then manipulate them further in like other programs, like on your computer. Like I've done this before for all kinds of different things. If you want, say, just the picture itself, you can unselect the background, so uncheck that background and then make sure anything else that goes along with the background is unchecked as well. And then you can save this just as a transparent image by itself. So this is really great if you want to do like icons or logos, or if you want to do like stickers or anything. Like, it's really great. All right guys, but I think that's about all that I have to share with you today. Those are all the tips and tricks and palettes and brushes that I use typically when I'm drawing. So I really hope this was helpful for you. I hope that it helps you with your own drawing and your own artwork. Thank you again to that original commenter for asking. It shows interest in the things that I do, and that meant a lot to me. So thank you very much. All right, but that said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.